This is the Building a Lifestyle Business Podcast, where we inspire solopreneurs like you to win back your life by teaching you how to build businesses that maximize your freedom, flexibility, and income, all without trading time for money. Here's your host, Nick Murphy.
Hey there, my friend, and welcome to the Building a Lifestyle Business Podcast. My name is Nick Murphy. I'm your host. Thanks for being here. Listen to this week's masterclass. This week's masterclass is brought to you by Podigy. Podigy saves me so much time every single week by handling all the technical aspects of this podcast. From audio editing to show notes, Podigy takes care of it all. So I get to focus my time on interviewing kick-ass lifestyle entrepreneurs, scheduling masterclasses like the one you're listening to right now, and most importantly, building my business. So if you or somebody you know is thinking about getting into podcasting, or you're a podcaster yourself already, and you're sick and tired of cutting your own audio, be sure to check out Podigy. And when you do, make sure to tell them that Nick Murphy sent you. This episode, I want to talk to you guys about why people stay in jobs they don't love. It's something that I'm really fascinated by, trying to understand the psychology and what goes into the decision to stay in something that doesn't make sense. It's always just kind of fascinated me. Obviously, my world is kind of jobs, but I mean, the same kind of thing applies to why people stay in relationships, why they stay in other situations, why they continue habits that aren't helping them, things like that. So I've identified kind of in my work over the last decade or so, why people stay in jobs they don't love is usually boils down to three main reasons. And the first reason that I hear all the time is that people are scared of losing what they have because they think that they have it pretty good. And maybe they're in a leadership position at work, or maybe they're even leading a company as a CEO. But for whatever reason, they're just not fulfilled and they're considering leaving. It's hard to justify, right? Like, so many people would kill to have this job, and so worked for a decade to achieve what you're about to quit, and still doesn't have the opportunity you have. And who do you think you are? And you're ungrateful. The perspective of that is fascinating. Once you achieve this new level, it becomes your new baseline. I know when I was working in the corporate world early on there, after my first startup failed, I needed an income. You know, we went down with the ship, so to speak, in that first startup. And so it was about rebuilding not just confidence and trying to salvage what we had learned and turn it into something that was valuable, but it was really about income and making sure that you could create the life, that I could create the life I needed. My goal was to make $100,000. And oh my God, that seemed absolutely impossible coming out of a bankruptcy, you know, with a job that paid 42 grand. And once I achieved that $100,000, it just became the new baseline. It was such a big deal because I made it a big deal in my head. But once I had achieved it, that's your new expectation because your perspective has shifted. Oh, I did the thing. Now I have proof that I can do it. And so now I'm just going to continue to do that. Pretty simple, right? But our belief of what's good is completely dependent on our current perspective. And that's normally inextricably tied to our level of success, our knowledge, our comfort level, how much money we make, our sense of security. And so I want you to just think about this. Who says that this is the top of the mountain? And I was listening to a show earlier this week. And if you've ever set out on a hike with the idea of like getting to a certain peak on the mountain, and then you get halfway up there, or you get all the way to that stopping point that you had predetermined, only to discover there's this peak beyond that you couldn't even see when you set out. What if that were true in your career? I mean, we see it all around. We've been on roads where we didn't see something until we were down the path. What if it were true in your business? What if it were true in your career, that what we believe is the top, or what we believe is, you know, we have it so good so we can't leave? What if there's a whole new level of high? What if there's a whole nother plateau, a whole nother peak that we can get to that we don't even see, that's exponentially bigger than what we're doing? The second reason I see people stay in jobs they don't love is that they can't see proof that they can succeed, so they choose to stay put. And I just want to be really clear on this. Choosing to do nothing is a choice. I learned this lesson back in my sales career. And in that environment, when I'd pitch a new prospect a deal and they said no, I assumed that, like, hey, you know, what'd you buy? Did you buy it from this other company? Or did they, like, what happened? Why'd you go with somebody else? And 9 times out of 10, it wasn't because they actually went with anybody else. It's because they didn't see enough potential gains to deal with making a change. And the unknowns outweighed the knowns. So they would choose to do nothing. That's a choice. They didn't say yes to somebody else and no to me. They said no to everything different and yes to what they've always done. And in the case of leaving a job to go create something that's all your own, you can't wait for proof and still win. It takes action to achieve that, but choosing to stay put is the choice that feels the safest. And it's 1000% certainly the easier choice than going and doing something else. So people stay in jobs they don't love because they're scared of losing what they have, because they think they have it pretty good, or because they don't see proof that they can succeed, so they choose to stay where they are. And the third reason I see all the time is they're concerned with what other people may think or say. And I've kind of banged this drum a couple times in the past, but I want to say it again. People that are doing less than you are the only ones that will judge you. You don't see Gary Vaynerchuk out there on Twitter hate shaming people that are hustling and trying to build something for themselves. You see a lot of people doing it to Gary, You don't see Tony Robbins out there telling coaches on the internet that they're junk. You see a lot of people blowing up Tony Robbins saying, who do you think you are? It's always true in my experience. And I would bet you that if you think about your experience, it's the same for you. The people that have become haters, the people that have tried to keep you playing small are always operating at a level below where you are. And you're winning when you start to get those haters. Your boldness and willingness to be all in on your dreams literally offends their sense of security in their status quo. Like doing nothing is 100% safer and easier than working hard. And the people that believe that have this scarcity mindset where if you succeed, somehow they feel like they fail. Like if you win, I have to lose. You ever met somebody like that? They say these passive aggressive things like, oh, that must be nice when you take a nice trip or buy a car that you've worked for. Or, yeah, I don't know who she thinks she is, putting herself out there like that and trying to be all that. People like that are really, really toxic. And please, for the love of God, do not let them keep you playing small. Time and time again over the last decade, when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of why people stay put, why we're unfulfilled, I quote the Gallup study all the time, 85% of people are unengaged or actively disengaged in their work. The reason people stay are typically those three reasons. They're scared of losing what they have because they think they have it good. They think that's the peak. And if anything else is going to be a step down, they don't see the proof that they can succeed. So they choose to stay where they are, even if it's the knowledge of this misery is better than not knowing of something that could be good but isn't guaranteed. Or, and probably the worst one, they're concerned with what other people may think or say. If you can get past the first two, the third should sure as hell not hold you back, in my opinion. In this episode, I've really been talking to those of you that have yet to make the leap, those that are kind of feeling frustrated, that are maybe passively listening to a podcast like this or others, and you're trying to figure out what you want to do. You're trying to, what you're doing is not working. You need a change, but you're not quite ready to jump in. The reason people stay in jobs they don't love are the reasons that we talked about on the episode. And I think rather than point you to something or try to pitch you on anything, what I really invite you to do is listen to the Tuesday long form interview episodes that I put out every week and just be inspired by people's stories. There are people in every business in the world. I mean, our guests are insane in terms of the different ways that they make money and find ways to build lives and careers on their terms. The opportunity is there. And what I do in those Tuesdays episodes, the intent at least, is to help you get the confidence and courage to make that leap. Because I know for a fact, I know from experience, that once you take that leap, you will see all kinds of things you don't see. And these problems, this anxiety, this angst that you feel by staying in this job that you don't love will all evaporate. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. Doesn't mean your first idea is going to be the one. But it does mean when you start, you will start to solve that problem. And Tuesdays are really all about that. Other people, how they felt before they left, why they decided, what was the thing that finally pushed them over the edge, made them quit that career and go out on their own. And then what are the highest highs? What are the lowest lows? What advice would they give if they were starting over today? So if you haven't checked out the Tuesday episodes, the interviews, go ahead and do that. I hope that if you're still listening to this at this point, that you are not willing to just continue to settle and stay in jobs you don't love because of the things we talked about. It's just not worth it, guys. I promise you. All right, that's it for me this week. Before I let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you to get in the game. Trading time for money is no way to live. You deserve a life on your terms, and building a lifestyle business is the fastest, safest, and best way to do just that. Go ahead and check out an episode on Tuesday if you want. Make sure you press subscribe, and your app will ping you next Tuesday when the next episode comes out, and you can gather some of that inspiration and make sure to get in the game. All right, guys, I hope you have a great week. Stay tuned. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Building a Lifestyle Business Podcast. To access the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.nickmurphy.io.